Hello and welcome to Really Cool People, a podcast produced by Schweitzer Church. I'm your host, Jason Leininger. This is a place to hear stories of really cool people. The hope is that you and I will be inspired, encouraged, and challenged through moments of serendipity. In a sermon entitled The Weight of Glory, C.S. Lewis said, "There are no ordinary people. You and I have never talked to a mere mortal." It's my joy over the next few moments to introduce you to somebody who may seem somewhat ordinary, especially themselves, and yet they're a really cool person. Today, we're going to meet Maxine Brown. She grew up in rural Kansas. She set a record that still stands as a part of her high school track team, and she became one of the first nurse practitioners. She's going to talk about her journey in life and her journey in faith. It's a great story. So help me welcome Maxine Brown. Maxine, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's start with your story. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up in a little town in northeast Kansas, Centralia. We probably had 700 people in our hometown, and a lot of them were farmers. I had beautiful parents who were very loving. My dad was a mechanical engineer. He graduated in 1942 from Kansas State University and went right in. He was in ROTC and went right into World War II in the South Pacific. And he would go in and they would put all the vehicles together before the troops got there. And so because he was an officer, that first year when he was in training, my mom got to travel with him. And so I have my dad was, the military was very important to him, and the Legion and that area. My mom and him went to high school together. Mom went to a little grade school out on the farm called Hog Corner, and there's stories about that. But then they went to high school together in our little town of Centralia.
Can you imagine the mascot or the sweatshirts for Hog Corner?
Well, it got its name because one summer somebody stored their hogs in the school building. Anyway, so my parents, they built the house that I was born in. I wasn't born in the house. Actually, I was born in Seneca, Kansas, which is just 9 miles away. And there were 4 of us girls, and my oldest sister is 10 years older. And she still lives in Centralia, and they had 4 children, and they have there's 56 of them now. Wow. Great-grandchildren and grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah. Kind of like my parents.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, my second sister lives in Wamego, and then my third sister, Marty, was 15 months older than I am. She lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
So you're the baby of the family.
I'm the baby. There were a lot of advantages to that. Summer, I just had this amazing growing up years. There were lots of kids in the neighborhood. We knew everybody. I always laughed because I said, I wasn't Catholic, but I was related to everybody in town because my grandparents on my mom's side had 5, 6, 7 brothers and sisters, and they were all in town. It was a community. You grew up in a community. My uncle was the janitor at school, and my aunt was one of the cooks. So it was this family all through the community. I lived at the swimming pool. My parents had a huge garden, although we were in town, but my uncle farmed and he would plant corn. So we would put up maybe 70, 100 quarts a year of corn and freeze and can and all those good things.
Did you guys have a swimming pool in your backyard, or was it a city swimming pool?
City. Yeah. It was built, I think they just had the history. I think it was built in when I was 5. So I was born in 54. So before that, we would have to go there was a lake in Seneca, and there was a beach over there. I don't really remember that because I was young, but no, we had a community pool. No, nobody had a pool in their backyard. We were all middle class except for the mortician and the banker.
There's money to be made as a mortician.
Yeah. So anyway, I played with dolls. I loved to build things. Dad would go to the lumber yard and bring home lumber, and I would nail them to make chairs for my little dolls outside, and so that was a lot of the things. Plus, we had lots of neighborhood kids, and so we did a lot together. We had a huge open field just across the street, and we played. Well, it's not soccer like today, but all kinds of sports out on that
Mm-hmm.
field. We were always outside.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was an outdoorsman. He loved to hunt and fish, and so I went with him a lot. I loved to fish with my dad, and we used to. Dad, like I said, he was a mechanical engineer, and when he came back to Centralia, and my grandfather had a automotive shop. And so it probably wasn't the best use of my dad's education financially, but allowed us to grow up in that little town. So my grandfather was a welder, just learned on his own. He was a smoker, and so he made a lot of the parts and stuff for the tractors, or if people needed them by welding them. And so they were the mechanics in town.
Do you remember what kind of cigarettes your grandfather smoked?
Camels.
When you smell that smell, you can't forget it, can you?
Yeah, I'm not around anybody that smokes anymore, so I
know.
don't notice. And I don't know how many people smoke Camels anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But he died from cancer, so
Mhm.
he was my first grandparent that passed. So my dad and my grandfather took an old school bus and renovated it. I have pictures of it I can show you later. And they drove it to we fished on the Blue River. And it was about an hour away, and it had the back of the bus had bunk. They were kind of doubles, but they really weren't. And then bunk singles, and then the table dropped down into beds, and it had a propane stove, and Dad had a generator, and off we'd go to the Blue River, and then we would set bank lines. He kept a boat out there. His name was Joe Tinnipers. It was his private farmland. And I would just run the banks so that you didn't dare swim in the Blue. It wasn't safe. A lot of turbulence and stuff like that. But just ran the banks and just played. So really good memories. I did not like running bank lines during the night because I just could always see monsters coming out of the water. But I was young, so I did that a lot with my dad. And
did he drink coffee when he was out doing that?
No. I don't know what he drank.
How'd you stay awake?
Well, I don't know how he woke up every few hours. I don't know. I don't remember that. I was young. I was 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So it was wonderful. And I am named after my dad. Really? I was the 4th girl. His name is Max Raymond. Okay. And I am Maxine Ray. And now I have a grandson, Max, who's named, not really after me, he's named after my dad. But yeah, my parents were very special. So yeah, wow. Max Mahaffey.
Yeah.
Named after my dad. Let's see, did the normal. I was very athletic. And that's one thing I did well was sports. Although girls' sports weren't there, I could outrun any of the boys in my class. And so I was more of a tomboy in that regard than the frilly with the group girls. So the boys were always probably my closer friends.
What was your favorite sport?
Well, we had track in grade school, so my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade year. And then when I was a freshman, we got high school track started for girls. Now, the boys had a lot of sports, but we didn't. So we got track started. So I did 4 years of track. And then my senior year, actually, my niece just reminded me, she had gone to the alumni banquet, and they read the notes from the year she graduated. And I and my classmates after our junior year went to the Board of Education to lobby for girls basketball. I don't remember that at all, but she said that was in the notes. But we got basketball my senior year. And I was good at defense because I was very fast, but I wasn't the best dribbler and not the best shooter because that takes practice. But
Mm-hmm.
sports now, I love soccer. I like college football. I really like most sports. Not so much baseball, but just because it's slow. Yeah. That's why I live. That's why we live at the soccer fields and the basketball, watching our grandchildren.
You do. And they play a lot of soccer, right? So you like gotta.
Soccer,
Yeah.
and they play basketball and baseball and softball.
Yeah.
And same way in Kansas City, my 3 there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, baseball has been sped up. So.
Yeah, I don't watch much of it. I really don't watch it on TV. So, but the only baseball game I go to is Max's, and he's 9.
Yeah.
But I understand the games. I understand football and
Yeah.
calls. I was a cheerleader for 7 years.
So that's fascinating that you had to lobby to get girls basketball in. Because I've talked with some other people who are a little older than you, and they talked about how they just didn't have any kind of athletics when they were going through their high school years. And so then that began to open up.
Probably then.
Yeah. So like that would have been like, what, 1970, 71?
Yeah, I graduated in 72. So the 71, we had basketball.
First ever.
Yeah. So, but track is what I really did. We didn't have softball in grade school. The boys had baseball, but we always played a game called Andy Over. Do you know that game?
No.
We had a ranch house. So what we would do one would be on one side of the house and my sister and I would be on the other side. And we'd throw the ball over the house and say, Andy over. And you had to wait for the fly ball to come down.
Yeah.
So when I was a freshman in Centralia, so my grade school class had probably 20 kids all through grade school. And then when I was a freshman, there's a little town called Vermilion that was already included in the school district. And my freshman year, Corning, Kansas, who was a very strong Catholic community, very loyal to their community, they got put into Centralia. And so there were a lot of athletes coming out of Corning. And so my sister and I wanted to play ball in Corning. Well, a couple of the parents over there didn't want us to. And so one of the parents knew that we were in the Legion. So she goes, well, we're just going to transfer your Legion membership over there. And so she did. So I played 4 years of softball in college or in high school, outfield.
Okay.
And then Steve and I, we played all through our kids growing up in Topeka.
Wow. Centralia, thinking about all that, and your dad, you mentioned that he had this degree. Did he ever go beyond Centralia, or did he just stay there and like?
He stayed there forever.
Yeah. Did he ever use his degree outside of that shop?
No, he could fix anything and everything, but no, not like not like what he went to school for. So it was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't about money for him. His community. So, what else is on here? We had 2 little churches. You're probably curious about that.
Yeah.
A lot of the community were Catholic. A lot of the farmers, not all farmers, but a lot of them were. So in town we had. I think it was initially Congregational Church.
Oh.
And then as I got older, it changed to the United Church of Christ.
Yep.
I didn't see much difference and I didn't understand any of that. And that's what it still is now. And then a block away was the Methodist Church. And the others, everybody else, the Catholics went to Seneca, which was about 9 miles away. So there were a lot of Catholic churches in the small community, not in Centralia.
No Baptist churches?
No. So being here in Missouri now.
Yeah.
How do I say this? I was never exposed to the hell damnation type ministering that occurred in a lot of the conservative churches.
Uh-huh.
So I never got any of that. And so I see a lot of that in people that are affected by not feeling worthy.
Hmm. What did you pick up?
Well, I thought about a lot about that. And, we had Sunday school every Sunday. What I remember, we had all these little chairs and someone would play the piano and we would all sing songs, all of the ages. And then we had Bible study, or, Sunday school lessons, and then church. We had to learn we had to memorize, the books of the Bible and all that stuff to be confirmed. But I don't remember we didn't learn, I don't remember learning memory verses. That was never, I could have, but I just didn't see it as important. And then we had, on Sunday nights, we had youth group, which included the Methodists, but that was all, we had a really good time. I don't know how religious it was, but we had a good time. Went to Girl Scout camp. I was a Girl Scout, and church camp from the time I was a fifth grader. That was we went to White Memorial Camp, which is outside of Council Grove. There's still camps there. There's a lake there. We got to canoe, and that was very memorable. I have a lot of good memories from that.
So, all the mix of that, what would you say your understanding or conception of God was like?
Loving. Generous. I don't know that I had a concept. I do remember as a child, I was afraid of dying. That fear of what's going to happen to me and, what is hell? But I don't think it was probably until later that it started coming to me. So I think it was there, the bones, but it took a while to generate into my being. We went to church. My parents, when I had in my little book I wrote, which I was just telling you, I had to reflect on my faith compared to my parents and to now. And I look at that and I'm going, we didn't have the resources that are available now to try to understand the Bible. You had a minister, and at home we had this little green box of prayers that we would read at dinner. But it was just one of those things you did. But my parents, one of your questions was, what did I get from my parents? And it's not more of what they told me. And I reflected on that, trying to think, what is it they told me? And I don't remember them telling me, but we shared trust and they demonstrated service. My mom would always be, and part of it's that community atmosphere. We were always taking food to people. We were always, if someone didn't have a ride to Seneca to the doctor, then she would take them because she worked for my dad. She kind of kept all the books and everything. And so that's just what we did, and then family. We lived in town. My one grandparents, where my dad grew up, was across the street. And my other grandparents, my mom's side, built a house on the other side of the street when they retired from the farm. So I grew up with, my one grandparents always knew what time I got home. But they were there. It was family,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
not a bad way to grow up.
No, it was a wonderful way to grow up. I worked in high school. I tell you, one of the coolest things that we did at church camp, and I shouldn't remember this. I was probably seventh grader, but they had this. We were in the big pavilion, and it was inside where we ate. And we each had a scripture to read, and they put us in different places. You've probably done this before. They put us in all these different places singularly with a little flashlight. And then when it was your time to read your scripture, it was black. You'd turn your little light on, and you'd read that scripture. And that was the most intense, I don't remember any of the scripture, but memorable things to me that really touched me.
Did you leave your light on after you read the scripture?
Nope, you shut it off, and then the light might come on across the room or something. It was good. It was good. That's one of my memories. But
Yeah.
I met lots of different people at church camp.
Then you graduated from high school. Then what'd you do?
Well, I have to tell you this. I still hold 2 track records in Centralia.
You do?
My name is up there with John Riggins, if you know who John Riggins is.
The running back from
He was from
the Washington
Centralia.
Redskins?
Yeah, I grew up with him.
You did?
He's older. I grew up with his brother was 2 years older, and then his dad, Papa Gene, he knew I was an athlete, and Papa Gene was military, and I don't think he was always kind. And a lot of stories about John, but yeah, when you. So here I was. I went to junior track meets all the time. My folks would take me to, and I went to the Junior Olympics and stuff. I did the standing broad jump. They don't do that anymore.
No, they don't.
I hold that record.
Okay.
And I was a sprinter, so my favorite run was the 50-yard dash. But I did the 75 and 100 in high school. But when John came home from college one day, Papa Gene made him come up and help me get out of the starting blocks. And so he did. So he put me in starting blocks, and he put a rope or something around my waist. And then I had to learn to power out of the starting blocks.
Oh, wow.
And I dropped my time 0.4, and that's quite a bit in the 50-yard dash.
Yes, it is.
So, yes. And the reason I still hold the records is because it's in meters now, not yards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went to state once, and yeah. So sports and cheerleading, the athletes were cheerleaders. So it was good.
Yeah.
High school was good. Typical high school. You had drama, and I quickly learned about the change process because the Corning kids did not want to be there. And so when we were freshmen, the kids were okay, but the sophomore, juniors, and seniors, and it wasn't really till our senior year that those kids had graduated that people got together. So it's a perfect example of the change process.
You mean how nobody likes change at first?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, it's a reality that's coming,
then they're
right?
gone, and it takes time to work through all of that.
Yeah.
So, and then when I graduated, I enrolled at K-State, but they didn't have a nursing program. And I always knew as a child, I never changed. I wanted to be a nurse. And so my favorite golden book was Nurse Nancy. You ever read Nurse Nancy?
I didn't. No, I didn't know that there was a golden book named Nurse Nancy.
Yeah. That was me.
Okay.
Wanted to be a nurse, and that never changed. So after I realized that, I ended up going to Washburn University for a year. And I went to diploma school, which was at Stormont Vale at the hospital there.
Okay,
I could have, if I would have gone to Washburn that year, I would have been the first graduate of the degree program. And I don't regret not doing that because they didn't know what they were doing. Got out of school and, as a diploma nurse, plus I worked on the units. So back those days, if you had a hernia repair, you were in a week. And I worked on the surgery floor in the evenings, and everybody got a back rub. And then every morning before surgery, you would knock them out with Nimbutol, which is no longer available before surgery. But anyway, so I gave lots of back rubs. And
was it pretty strong?
Oh, my gosh. Yes. They don't even make them anymore. Yeah. So I worked there as an aide for a couple of years as I went through school, which was good.
Did you have to wear all the white starched costumes? Yeah.
Yep. White. And of course, then I had my hat when I graduated.
Yeah.
So then I was still. So after I graduated, I went to work at Stormont, worked on the surgical unit for a year. Year or two, then I went to the recovery room, which I have a funny story. There are so many funny stories about medicine. And from there, I went to the ICU. And our ICU, back then, the coronary unit, only people with MIs went to one unit. I worked in the ICU, so we had all of the traumas, strokes, all the surgeries
Mm-hmm.
that came through there, metabolic issues, they all came through the ICU. And I was at Stormont I worked in the ICU for several years, and then, I have to tell you one of the things that I thought of was one of my failures that changed my life because it
Sure.
affects my next decision.
Okay.
So I told you I was a really good softball player.
Yeah.
I wasn't a very good hitter, but I could bunt any place I wanted to put the ball, and I could run like the wind. So when I went to Washburn, I wanted to play softball. And when I went to tryouts, I didn't have any confidence in myself. I could not catch a fly ball. I was devastated. So I quit. I walked away. So that made me always look at taking risks. I said, I'll never do this again. Let myself walk away.
Huh.
I still played ball because we played co-rec and women's until I blew my knee out. But so then after a couple of years, I went to work. Well, I was in the ICU, and back then they didn't have nurse practitioners and stuff like that. They had a position back then. Education was important. It was called a critical care clinician, and so we had 2 critical care courses. The first one was 3 weeks, and the second one was more for advanced nurses, and it was about 3 weeks. And so I helped lead those classes, and I taught a lot of them. So I had to do a lot of studying and learn that for every hour you teach, it takes about 10 hours of study. That was my average. So when I took that job, I said, I wasn't comfortable getting up in front of people. And I'm going, but I'm going to do this. I am not going to not do this. And I did. So I did that for 10 years. And I traveled around Northeast Kansas and did presentations and CEs and stuff like that.
So you taught a whole lot of people, not just in one hospital, but in a whole bunch of areas.
No, yeah, I did. Does that surprise you?
No, it's just like giving a sense of scope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did it surprise you?
It took me a while to get used to it, but I like to teach. But what I've recognized over time is what I'm not always good at, because when you teach, you have to learn. And to be a really good teacher, you have to be able to be laid back enough to say, ask questions, or you give me your opinion. I have to really work at that, even when I lead at my Bible study. So,
Yeah, that's okay.
I met Steve. He was in school there. That's where we met.
Where at Washburn?
Stormont. He came to Stormont to X-ray school. That's where he first got his first education in X-ray. So we met there and dated. And
where's that hospital at, or where was it at?
It's in Topeka.
Okay.
It's a big hospital.
Okay.
It's a trauma one.
Okay.
Back then it wasn't trauma one because they didn't have all those designations.
Yeah, sure.
But we got almost all the traumas from Fort Riley.
Okay.
And all of Northeast Kansas.
So Steve came to be
He worked, he got his education there. We got married in 76. I graduated in 75. He graduated in 76. He went to work for a different group, not at the hospital, but I stayed on at the hospital. And Steve's is a different story. But so we were both ingrained in the medical community. And the other really, as I was reflecting back on the sense of community, which is so important to me, the hospital was like a community. You knew everybody. You knew all of the doctors. My job, I knew them from the hospital, but so I taught for 10 years. So let me go back. So I was really at Stormont for 19 years. And then I got the opportunity, and I took the opportunity to apply to work for the surgeons in town, really top-notch surgeons. And so I wrote my resume and what I could do for them. And so I went to work for them in 1988. And at the time, there was just one who was Dr. McElroy, and then Dr. Hamilton was there, but he was gone for a year. And what I did for them was I made rounds at the hospital. I wrote their progress notes. They would have to come around and add or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So I was like their eyes and ears, and the nurses would call me. And so St. Francis is just within a block and a half of Stormont. So we practiced at both hospitals.
Uh-huh.
So I knew everybody. And so that's what I did for the next 19 and a half years.
Was that like the first phases of nurse practitioners?
Yeah. But, like I could write out their prescriptions, but I couldn't sign them or anything. So I would write them and put them in the chart. But you just knew everybody, and it was home. It's home. And so that's probably one of my questions that you had on that list of who did I look up to or who impacted me. And I'd have to say, first of all, the surgeons. Because when Dr. McElroy was a biblical scholar. I'm telling you, he was a biblical scholar, and he went every year to Haiti, and he did a practicum when he's older than I am. He's passed, actually. He would be in his 90s now. He did practicum in Africa, like operating on elephantitis, and he used to show us all these slides and stuff. But he was a terrible communicator. He was a little blunt. And I was laughing this weekend when we had to go home for a funeral, and I went by to see his wife, who's in her 90s. I just needed to see her. And then one of the other surgeons I'll mention. And we were talking about him, and he would teach in our Sunday school class. Steve and I went to First Baptist Church in Topeka, which is American Baptist. We had 75 in our Sunday school class. It was just an amazing church. Anyway, he was in our class, but whatever you taught, he had this drawl, very opinionated. So when he was talking to a woman or something with breast cancer, I was really his mouth, because I could take them, because at that time with just one or two, I scheduled most of the surgeries and was there when they saw him post-op, so I got to know lots of people. And a lot of them were Northeast Kansas, so they knew me or Steve or the family, so they felt safe. So I would explain to them what he tried to tell them. He called me his mother. Does that surprise you either? Yeah. So, Jim, he would just say what he thought. And Jim was just laughing the other day. Well, Saturday when we saw him, he wrote the chart. No, I won't say that. Cut that. No. We won't say that. Very appropriate. But he didn't mean to mean. He just wrote what he saw, what this person looked like. Wow. And then Dr. Hamilton, I started with him, and then he he's a Rhodes Scholar. Wow. And he went to K-State. All my docs initially went to K-State, we're big purple or white. But then he got his medical degree, both of them did, at KU. And then he did his practicum in Boston Children's and Harvard surgical residency. And so he operated all the NICU babies. And in Stormont, we had a NICU. And but his wife was an organist, and she always wanted to play the organs in all the European churches. So he did a fellowship in Bern, Switzerland for a year and did liver transplants. So he learned French and German. And so he was gone for about a year till he came back. Oh, he was an amazing, he was so smart. He is so smart. I'm still close to him. But what I loved about both of them is that Christian faith that they witnessed to their patients. And he was called the singing surgeon. And he would sit on a patient's bed and sing to them whatever hymn they wanted. He knew all of the hymns and stuff. But yet they were honest with their patients. This is reality. This is what you need to do. And this is what we are here for you. And so I I learned I already probably had compassion, but from Jim and some of the other surgeons, they showed love and compassion like you just don't see much anymore.
Wow.
So,
That'd
yeah,
be a really special place to work and to.
it was very special. And, our office was like a family. And before I left, there were 5 surgeons, and I loved them all. They were independent, so they weren't dependent on the hospitals
Mm-hmm.
telling them what to do or
Mm-hmm.
anything. And that was rare. They fought a long time to keep their separate ways, but they're
Yeah.
still family.
Yeah.
So,
That's amazing.
yeah. So I remember Dr. Hamilton. We had this girl. She was from Seneca, where I grew up, and there was a group of kids that were in a really terrible accident. And Mandy, her name was Mandy. She had terrible head injury and terrible abdominal injuries and
Hmm.
stuff. And she was in the ICU for months, and Dr. Hamilton was taking care of her. And the mother was Catholic, and she prayed over that girl every day, positively, not
Mm-hmm.
just she's going to be okay. And she prayed over her and prayed over her. And at one point, I was with him because I made rounds with him a lot. He goes, her liver is being affected by all the tube feeding, and she was on TPN, which is IV nutrition. He said, we need to stop it right now because her liver's got to recover. And her mom said, but okay, she just kept praying. And that girl survived.
Hmm.
She was probably 14 or so. And when she turned 19 or 20, Jim was invited to her wedding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Did you have kids while you were working there?
Yes. So, Sarah was born in 1978. So at that point, I was working in the ICU, and I think probably by then I was teaching. So I wasn't working weekends or holidays, but
Mm-hmm.
yes, Sarah was born in 1978, and then Joe came in 1982. So yeah, I worked full time.
What was it like to raise your kids in Topeka and in that whole environment where you obviously loved work and like, but I mean, yeah, what's it like to raise kids in that environment?
It was good. It was
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
It was family. Um, I didn't really take work home with me. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
got home. We had a garden and pretty big backyard, and we were into sports, so we played a lot of backyard ball,
Mm-hmm.
and we had neighbor kids, and so we lived on a hill, and Joe, our son, he tore the tires off of I don't know how many Hot Wheels. We went through so many vehicles, racing up and down the hills. So I think their childhood was pretty normal.
Uh-huh.
Dr. McRoy had a huge pond in La Lands. He was a horse person.
Hmm.
And so he'd always have a party out there, and the kids could, paddle boat around. And so I think they had a pretty normal childhood, even with Steve and I working.
Mm-hmm.
We had sick time. If one of them was sick, we would take off. And
So then what propelled you to move from there?
well, one is Steve's job was getting. He worked a couple places. There were a lot of politics that happened, like any of the medical centers before we left,
Mm-hmm.
going on, and it did affect him initially. He had to go to work. He went to work at the hospital. He didn't have to. That's another whole story. But they were making he had so many licenses compared to everybody else that he was working 10-hour days nonstop, and so his shoulders were wearing out.
Hmm.
And for a while, the hospitalists came to being, and they learned that if they got tests done on their shifts, that they got more, quote, RVUs and made more money. So they were calling the sonographers in at midnight, 2 in the morning to do an ultrasound that was totally inappropriate so they could make more money. There's a lot of that.
Huh.
Yeah.
You're disclosing some things I've never thought about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, um, that's probably, well, we knew our kids were never coming back to Topeka,
Mhm.
and my parents were not well, but even though I was in Topeka, I was still an hour and a half away, which was too
Mhm.
far. My sister lived up there, but I was the healthcare provider for my parents, more or less. And so I knew I wanted to be where there was family. And then Sarah started having babies, and Joe took him a little longer to grow up. He 5 years at K-State, and then he went to Europe and backpacked for 2 months, all through Europe. I would have never done that. Well, that was after college, yeah. And then he worked, didn't know what he wanted to do, and so he said, "Well, one day he goes, oh, Mom, I've been looking, and I'm gonna go to Costa Rica for a year to teach English as a second language." I'm going, what? So, like, we'd never heard of Costa Rica, really. Third world country. So he did that, and he left the day that Steve moved to Springfield, and he went to Costa Rica.
Mm.
And he grew up over there. It was an amazing experience for
Yeah.
him, but that's why. And so it was a God moment too, I think, because, well, I looked around and couldn't really find anything I liked. Steve had tried to apply at the prison, but he was older than 38, so you can't go to work there unless you're
Huh.
medical. And even though he did ultrasound, that didn't count. So I applied, and then I had an interview over Thanksgiving and got to tour. That was an experience, the first time walking through those doors out there.
The prison in Springfield?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got offered the job, but it was federal, so it took several months. So Steve found a mobile job that he worked for, because the hospitals, it's called age discrimination.
Uh-huh.
He had 4 or 5 licenses, but they wouldn't hire him. They would bring him in at base beginning salary, not
Uh-huh.
for a 30-year sonographer who knew more than probably half the radiologists. So he went to work for a mobile company, took a big cut in pay, but he wasn't on call. And so then I came in March. So Steve dropped him off, Joe at the airport, drove to Springfield, and that's when they had that tornado in January 2008.
Okay.
So he was in a basement with the babysitter at Sarah's house. But yeah, so he came in 2008, and Joe was gone a full year. And then I started working in March of 2008 at the prison.
Did you ever go back to your home and care for your parents?
When we first moved here, I went back every 4 weeks. I drove back. It was about 6 hours.
Okay.
So we didn't really have a church home. We went here and there, but it was hard. You just couldn't settle in because 6 hours, it was a 12-hour weekend. But yeah, my mom was diabetic, and couple things happened to her, but she went from driving to not driving because she had wet macular degeneration one eye. And then she overnight this was still when I was in Topeka, overnight went blind. And because she had a central vein thrombosis in her eye. So I always would pick him up in Centralia and take him to Kansas City to the retinal specialist. So my dad was her eyes. And then he had what was called multiple system atrophy, which is a very rare form of Parkinson's. And he had some little strokes, which we look back on. And I know back then, and I'm trying to think, it wasn't Relafin. There was an anti-inflammatory drug that's off the market now. And, if one worked good, then 2 or 3 might be better. And I'm pretty sure, and that was one of the side effects. So then he developed this really rare condition, which he didn't ever shake, but he was rigid, very rigid. And so Mom took care of him, and she took care. And then they had a caregiver coming in. But we'd been down here maybe a year or two, a year and a half or so. And then at Christmas time, he had a major stroke.
Hmm.
And so, of course, we loaded up and packed up and went home. And peacefully, of course, my sister was there. And of course, they called me. I said,
Yeah.
no, don't do anything. Dad would not want anything done. So
Huh.
we were with him when he passed. He was 88 or 89. And I was blessed because he couldn't turn himself over in bed. And we had a caregiver coming in every 2 hours. And he kept telling Mother, do not put me in a nursing home. Do not, that guilt thing. And he
Yeah.
didn't. So I was thankful. So Mom lived at home there for a year or so. And then she had a stress fracture in her back. I still went up every 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Dad passed, I'd bring her down here and then hire someone to get her medicines just because she couldn't see and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So you've been in Springfield about
2008.
So that's about
18,
17 years, 17, 18 years.
17 years,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what have you found, like, this is like a different place, but different obviously than north central Kansas?
Northeast.
Yeah. So how does it fit?
Well, I think Springfield is an area where people just kind of sometimes resettle in. So there's a little more, everybody knows everybody. And so we knew everybody in Topeka, not that they were a family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably one of the hardest things for me is that community. And, in Topeka, we had a very active church. And of course, that's my other mentor would be Joe Cutter. Dr. Joe Cutter was our minister. And our neighbor, he came when our son was a freshman. And he was just incredible. So the church was growing and huge. Our Sunday school class is who we did everything with. Yeah. And so we had, class, and so many different people led it and everything.
Yeah.
So church was a big part. With the kids went to church camp and had a huge bell choir for kids. And then the other really cool thing about the church was Bill Anderson. They're still in Topeka. Jane was the organist, and he led the choir. He was also insurance, but he wrote children's plays. So our kids were in all of these plays at church. He wrote one called Bones, was all about Ezekiel and all the costumes. They did all of these children's plays that he wrote. So I miss some of that. And it's different up there now, too. Things change everywhere. But Joe always said, when he was down here one time, said, people pick how far they go to church by how far they have to drive to work. He said, that's the statistics. Did you know that one?
I didn't know that one.
He was very bright. He was a good guy. So that was the second person that really touched our lives.
Huh.
We sat out on the back porch. I miss that. Our neighbors, we would just sit out and talk, and we don't have that. We have good neighbors, but everybody's behind a fence. And
life has changed a lot, hasn't it, over the years?
Yeah, it does for everybody.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to?
That was a good question. I just enjoy each day. I don't have any. I'd love to go to Switzerland. That's always kind of been a place I wanted to go. I don't have this big bucket list. I would love to go back to Israel. That was a life-changing adventure for me. Life-changing. I want to go back. I just want to walk it myself. Or, I stay in touch with Claire, who was our guide. So if I ever have a question, I said, I just read this, Claire. Explain this to me, or what is this? Because I watched the Bible archaeology. That opened the Bible up for me totally. Changed my faith.
Yeah, you just see so many things so differently after that, don't you?
Yeah. I can see the Sea of Galilee and the mountains why the winds come through and they have all of that. And so that I just want to enjoy my family and just whatever comes up.
So nothing on a bucket list?
Not really. We're going to Spain this fall.
Okay.
So
you ever think about taking your grandkids to Israel?
I can't afford that. I got to experience it with Sarah.
Yeah.
And as you know, that was a very trying time for us when Sarah was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a hard year. I don't know. Do you remember any of that? I don't know that you were around here a lot.
I was here.
Jason just got here. And so,
Spencer did.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Spencer, sorry, Spencer.
Yeah.
He had just gotten here, and Bob knew them, of course, because Bob had baptized all four of their kids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was traumatic. That was one of my down times. But
you mentioned, community lots of different times, but so you found a community in Springfield?
We have a group that we hike and stuff with, some neighborhood people, and it's helped to be in some of the Bible studies.
Mm-hmm.
I love my women's group.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Elda. And, I like helping other people. I love going to see Mary Decker. We're weekly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still looking for my niche. I don't know. We're busy helping the kids right now. It's very hard to plan anything. But I really, if I was going to do something, and I don't know how I would do it, personality-wise, I'm kind of opinionated. I am opinionated, but I can also listen to the other side. You've seen that. We've had discussions before. I listen to the other sides, but I am so frustrated with the healthcare system. And people are lost. They just don't get the information they need. They don't know how to know what they're being charged for or what should my next step be. And if I was going to do anything, I would love to be that person that walked alongside somebody who was lost and not understanding, what do I have? I don't understand. And I don't blame the doctors and the nurses because they're run by the hospitals and they have these little time limits.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where that will ever take me, but
I would be leery of saying that you'd put your shingle out like that because you could probably fill up your day, night, weekends, and everything.
Yeah.
Because so many people have that experience of being lost.
Yeah. So I don't know where that's going to take me.
Yeah, you could start a whole new industry.
I don't want to do that.
One of the questions that I like to ask, and I ask it of everybody near the end of a conversation like this, is what's a bit of wisdom that you've heard, that you've gained, that maybe you pass along to your grandkids that would be a good bit of wisdom to share here?
Well, I knew this was coming. For me, and I'm blank on the author, you would know, What Would Jesus Do? What would Jesus? It was out of Topeka.
He was. Yeah.
And so I try to ask myself in every situation, what would Jesus say or what would Jesus do? And Saturday at the funeral, I was reminded of the poem, The Dash, and how what it is that you can do to make a difference. It's not the beginning and the end. It's what you do in the middle. So, and then I put together a handout. I'll have to bring it to you. There's a book, one of my favorite authors. Let's see, Holy Spirit, Here Now. Have you read that before?
I haven't read that one.
It's amazing. I read it by accident one time on a plane to a meeting, and he's a Methodist minister in South Africa. He's published a lot of books.
Okay.
And he wrote a book about the Serenity Prayer.
Okay.
It's a small little book.
Yep.
And in there, and I typed it out. I gave it to my ladies. In the morning, you look at self. You can do anything today that only lasts an hour or so, and that you should do this. You should do this. And then at the end of the day, you need to reflect on what did you do today, not to blame yourself or to be critical. One of them is like, learn something today, be a friend, help somebody. And So I have that. I'm going to laminate it and send it to college with Maggie. But anyway, I
That's
don't know.
good.
Just
That's good.
to love others.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great thing that you're going to do for your granddaughter. And are you ready to see her go?
Well, it's always hard. It's change.
Yeah.
But she's ready. So, yeah. So
Just fine young lady.
she is a fine young lady, and I'm so thankful. Joe, my son's a pharmacist at KU. He grew up, and his wife is just incredible, Whitney, and they have 3 girls, 5, 7, and 9. No, 5, 7, and 9, and they're athletic, and Joe's the most amazing father, which Steve and I we're always like, because he never, he had to do opposite of Sarah, because Sarah was always perfect, and then all the teachers wanted to compare, and he was different. He always had a ball in his hand, and he's an amazing, amazing person. And so Whitney, and they go to CORE, they go to Church of the Resurrection there, so that's where I go when we're gone. Yeah.
Well, you are delightful.
Well, thank you.
And it has been delightful to have this conversation with you. Everything from John Riggins to your dad and the work that he did and the sense of community that your mom really gave you, and then what you and Steve have done. I never come away from a conversation with the two of you where I am not just laughing out of delight, because you guys love life.
That's Steve.
It's both of you. It is both of you. You both laugh. You put smiles on people's faces, and it's just
God is good.
God is good, and you're
even when Sarah had cancer. God is good.
Yeah, you're a great gift. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
Thanks for this conversation.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate you.
Bless you. A big thank you to Maxine for sharing her story. In listening today, I hope that you were inspired, encouraged, and challenged, and that you begin to behold the really cool people around you. The Really Cool People podcast is produced by Schweitzer Church, Springfield, Missouri. Taylor Likes is our executive producer and editor, and I'm your host, Jason Leininger. You can help us out by liking, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. Until next time, stay cool.